So hello everyone, welcome to our channel Acts in a Room, where we can do numerous acts in a room. Today we are going to deal with Animal Farm Chapter 1 Summary and Analysis. Animal Farm by George Orwell is called a fairy story. In this chapter, Orwell introduces us to all the animals of his story except Napoleon and Snowball. The story keeps human beings in the background and the animals in the forefront. Readers are encouraged to believe that the animals can act, talk, and behave the way they do in the novel. We can accept the animals as important characters with an individuality of their own. Mr. Jones, the owner of Manor Farm, locked the hen houses for the night, but he was so drunk that he forgot to close the pop holes, which allowed the hens to let themselves out. Drunk as he was, he swaggered back to his room, had another glass of beer, and retired to bed. As soon as the light in the Jones' bedroom were put off, there was an activity in the farm. Information had gone around that old Major, an old boar with wisdom and vision, had a dream which he wanted to share with his friends, and so all animals on the farm agreed to meet at the big barn as soon as Mr. Jones, their master, was asleep. Old Major, alias Willingdon Beauty, was greatly respected by the animals, and they did not mind sacrificing an hour's sleep to hear him. Old Major was majestic, seated on a raised platform at one end of the farm. He was 12 years old and had a kind look. Soon animals began to pour in. The first entrants were Bluebell, Jessie, and Pincher, 3 dogs, followed by pigs. The hens that escaped from their coop perched on the windowsills, the pigeons found the rafters, the sheep and the cows settled behind the pigs. Trotting in slowly next were the Boxer and Clover, the cart horses, settling down carefully to see that they do not trample smaller animals. Clover was a comely motherly mare, stout and middle-aged, whereas Boxer was a majestic beast with a height of 18 hands and the strength of 2 horses. He was respected by all for his steady nature and great capacity to work hard. Next to arrive was Muriel, the white goat, and Benjamin, the donkey, the oldest of the animals and quite ill-tempered too. A loner on the farm, Benjamin rarely laughed, hardly spoke to anyone, but was cynical when he did speak. He only related well with Boxer, both of them spending their. After the horses settled down, a brood of ducklings came cheeping away, strutting from one side to the other, and finally settled down against the protective foreleg of motherly Clover. Chewing sugar, walking with an affected gait, was Molly, the mare that drew Mr. Jones' cart. In she came, flaunting her mane with its red ribbon. The last entrant was the cat, which made herself comfortable, purring happily and not really listening to paying attention, so all animals were present according to the narrator except the tame raven. Observing that all animals had settled, old Major cleared his throat and informed his audience that though he called them to tell them about his strange dream, he had something to say before describing it. He told them that he felt that he would not be around for very long, and that it was his duty to speak to them before he died. He embarked on a long lecture and conditioned the nature of their lives. He made them admit that it was full of misery and drudgery. The entire attack was on the way human beings were treating them. He said that they were just given enough. The minute the animals' usefulness reduced, they were cruelly budged. No animal in England had ever known happiness or peace. No animal was free. Born in a free country, they knew not freedom as they slaved for their masters. He pointed out that such a life of misery was not a part of nature, and that the soil of England was very fertile. The country had a good climate and good food production. Even a farm like theirs, he said, could accommodate many more animals and allow them a dignified life which was then lacking. So, if they were miserable in spite of that, it was because man stole most of the food that was produced. Man thus was their enemy. Remove man from the scene, and the root cause of hunger and overwork is abolished forever. He said that the man enjoyed the labor of animals and was dependent on them and was incapable of producing anything by himself. Major gave many examples to support his point, speaking about the eggs and the chicks that the hens gave, the gallons and gallons of milk that the cows gave to man, depriving their young, and the effort and physical labor of the animals, etc. Man had done all that to make money, sold the milk, sold the eggs. After all that, man killed the animals when he had no use of them. Thus, Major felt that if they got rid of man, their lives would improve. So what must they do? He suggested that they should work day and night, work hard to tell them that the result of that rebellion might be immediate. That is, they might be successful in overthrowing man soon, maybe within a week, or it might take a long time to see the results. But he was sure that they would succeed, and request his audience to pass the message to the future generation to carry on the struggle till it was successful. They would have to be firm and determined without straying away from. He told them not to believe the stories that said that man and animals shared common interest. Man's prosperity was animals' prosperity. He asserted that all men were their enemies and all animals were their friends. A sudden commotion diverted their attention. 4 large rats surfaced from their holes but were ruthlessly chased by the dogs. Seeing that, the Major decided to seek the opinion of the House as to whether rats could be considered as their friend or not. The House together voted for rats as friend. The 3 dogs and the cat voted for both sides of the opinion. Old Major continued with his dialogue to remind his comrades that whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. Man was their enemy. Similarly, anything that moved on 4 legs or had wings was their friend. He cautioned the animals that in their bid to fight man, they should not do what man did, viz. Live in a house, sleep on a cot, wear clothes, etc. Because man's habits were evil. No animal should trouble his fellow animals, and they should treat each other, weak or strong, as equals. No animals must ever kill any other animal, he added. Having conveyed his deep feelings, Major then touched upon his dream, the reason for calling them here. He started his narration that it would be difficult to give a proper description of his dream. The dream was of time when man would have vanished from the earth, a dream that reminded him of his childhood and the song of his mother and other soap pig sang. He had forgotten the song, but it strangely came back to him in his dream. He would then teach that song to his comrades. He cleared his throat and sang the song, which touched the soul, and had the animals chorus along with him. They all sang Beasts of England in one voice. The dogs whined, the sheep bleated, the cows mooed. All were happy. Unfortunately, that joy did not last long. The noise they created, whist singing, woke up Mr. Jones, who picked his readily kept gun and fired 6 shots into the air. The meeting broke. Everyone skluttered back home, running helter-skelter for their lives. Everything became quiet in the barn. Analysis. The story of Animal Farm is narrated in an impersonal manner, the narrator taking the bystander's role in noting down things but not making any personal observation on it. The reader is not allowed to look into the mind of the characters through the interpretation of the narrator, but is encouraged to form his or her own observation. The actions and the comments given are accepted as they are, considering that the characters here are animals behaving as humans. Old Major, a bore himself, helps us accept and understand the animals will talk and think like human beings. His point also adds to make a story a fairy story. The Animal Farm by George Orwell has a historical theme, the Russian Revolution. Critics have likened some of the major characters in the story to some Russian leaders of World War II. When Major asks Animal not to be like man, he stubbornly but clearly gives out the world of man with his petty thoughts. Fighting his own kind, killing its own kind, and cheating its own kind. Man fights a battle with man. Man kills man for different reasons. Man is corrupt. The animals would know not such a thing. Animals do not kill one of their own kind. A tiger does not kill a tiger. Even the jungle has its law. The Major highlights the point that man, a human being, is their enemy who deprives them of the fruit of their labor and enjoys it himself. Animals must not pay attention to the misleading and false argument of man. The Major's dream is his vision of the animals in future. It is nostalgic and pastoral but promising. The song Beasts of England narrates hope and presents a clear picture of good times ahead. A golden future allowing them to enjoy the fruit of their labor. A plot of the novel rests on the speech and its consequences, which are far-reaching. Animals, we observe, get led away very easily. The overwhelming response to the song Beasts of England proves this point. This vulnerable nature of theirs leads them to a trouble once again. The influence of old Major's speech persists for long and is exploited by Napoleon to fool animals into acting against their own welfare. They jeopardize with their lives in allowing themselves to be duped, this time not by man, but by their fellow animals. Thus, we see a satirical fable unfolding on Manor Farm, a typical English farm. Next, we come up with glossary, which is to be done by your own self. Thanks for watching. Goodbye and stay tuned.